we need to defeat poverty.
We cannot have a country which is so rich in resources and still have hunger. So we are thinking of a food bank, we are thinking of really feeding scheme. In Katutura, we always go to outside Windhoek, to outside towns. But people in those townships are sleeping with hunger. So one way is we're trying to look at how one can mobilize the private sector. It's not the government only. Farmers, I'm a farmer too. Because when we tackle poverty and hunger, we shouldn't limit. Let's have multifaceted approach. Let's declare total war on poverty. So therefore, if you have all kinds of attacks on poverty, why should we stop it? Let's fight it and defeat it. Therefore, we must revisit all projects, private, public, church. Let's fight poverty. So we're going to look at all these projects dealing with poverty and hunger. Then the infrastructure is of course a dimension to create jobs, and also self-employment must be encouraged. Namibians are eager just to get jobs from government. But if you are going sent to school, education has to be very, very much strengthened.
Then we come to the socio-economic development. When you talk about development, you have to move a little bit back. Who brings development? Skilled, educated people are the ones who bring development through their skills and education. Therefore, although we are talking about 23 years of independence, I think it's now, and perhaps last year or so, when we have started really having people coming who were educated in the independent Namibia, some becoming doctors. Those doctors, we see them now coming. You see them now coming. It's a long process to reach the level of producing skilled people who can do things.
If you look at countries like Singapore and Malaysia of this world, even Botswana, they are giving scholarship. But in the areas that the government has identified as needs to come and match the industry, we must do that. So education is one of the things. We must not just spend money, biggest chunk on education, we don't see the results, or quality is not there. So that's the area. But once I have told you, by giving you education, ammunition, then you are supposed to come back and not say, I have PhD, I want job. You must say, I have PhD or I have this, I'm going to create jobs for my people. That's education. So those are the things that when you talk about the development, what we focus on, that will be the areas. We are now a sovereign country. And it's for us to do things for our own people.
Well, my name is Mie Kamap II. I am the Secretary to the Commission, that's my official title, but I am the Chief Executive Officer of the Namibian Competition Commission. As you know, it's quite a fairly young and fledgling institution. We were established in 2009, but the act that governs our operations were in place in 2003. And there were regulations that sort of governs the operations of the commission that were put in place in 2008. So we're quite fairly young, but we have been working around the clock. We hit the ground running, and I'm proud to say that we've got 30 staff and professionals that are implementing the competition policy and law in the country. Yes, we actually, given the nature of the work that we do, we are time bound. So which basically means that there are two areas that we are concerning with currently. One is the issue of mergers and acquisitions. We are entrusted by the law to look at the businesses that want to come together. We are also entrusted by law to look at the economic problems, or rather, if I can call it that way, the ills in the economy. There is regard in this economy that some of the sectors do exhibit certain economic ills and they need to be healed. Some of the ills that one could actually talk about is the cartels. There are cartels, highly concentrated, very suspiciously secretive, and the task that is being given to us is to look at the cartels. The importance of competition in any economy is that, in essence, if there are behavioral aspects to any economic agent or an economic actor or an individual, a business enterprise, an undertaking, by the virtue of them getting into the economic sphere of Namibia, they in essence have to compete. Now, if you compete, you will want to compete under a fair and just way. And naturally, when you want to compete with an objective to maximize your profits, with an objective perhaps to increase your socio-economic contribution to the economy. But with all businesses and with all individuals, there is a tendency to sometimes overstep the limits of competition, which basically means that you tend to compromise other people's space in that market, or you tend to do certain behaviors which are not supposed to be done in that market. And that's where we come in as a Namibian Competition Commission. Our role is to adjudicate. Our role is also to make sure that if everybody wants to compete, they are free to compete. In fact, we want to promote and safeguard competition, but with a utmost objective that everybody that competes have got a fair and equal playing space, if you will, in the economy.
You might have heard that this year we started a process of free education. We started that process. It's a process that should be continued in order for us in the next 2 decades to be able to talk about implementation proper of our vision 2030.
And let me correct one misconception really, which is sending wrong signals. Free education concept was announced, and people are now running around saying education is now free for the first time. And government has been violating the constitutional obligation to provide free primary education. It's just the cost factors of education is basically tuition, buildings, and books. That's the basics. And that has always been provided by government for the last 23 years. What was not there was the school fees that the school boards have levied, and that therefore distorted the concept of free education. So we are happy that that has been removed, and the announcement should have clarified that we are removing this element which is distorting the concept of free education. Because when people are paying that, they thought education is not free. But that's not true. If you send a child to private school where you pay everything, it's about 40,000 a year. School fees were only about 300, some in Karatura and some 600 the highest. So tuition is what costs money. Teachers' fees, that costs money. And government has always been paying that. Having said that, education to me must even go one day to be free up to tertiary education.